because I believe every woman has a story to tell. And we all have so much more in common than we think. These are the women next to me.
Never mind a pandemic on top of this. Whatever.
Oh, it's fine.
I know. I think that's been part of the hardest part. You guys, so chemo has affected my words, and words don't work right. So my
Chemo brain.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so real. But that's been one of the hardest parts is not having support there with us. Like, and I'm sure you guys have had to experience that where we've had to go into appointments by ourselves. And then your mind is going a million places a minute, let alone the chemo drugs that have affected your brain cells. And then you have to and then I've left appointments and Jeremy's been like, so what's going on? What's next? I'm like, I don't know what was said. I do not remember.
Yeah, I got nothing. Or you try to call your spouse from the room to have them on speaker, and the cell service in doctor's offices is terrible. So maybe they'll catch every fourth or fifth word.
They don't let you bring one person to the appointment with you?
So I was allowed to bring my husband with me to
the doctor
surgical consultation and my initial oncologist consultation. But he has not been allowed to go to anything else. So when they do classes about chemo, he has not been able to attend. When I met with a plastic surgeon, he was not able to go. So it's a lot of fun because then they're like, hey, make this life-altering medical decision for yourself. And you're like,
Each alone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, because Eric comes to all of my appointments, and when I got diagnosed, I pretty much told him he's very analytical and Excel sheets. So I was like, this is all you. I am just going to focus on my mind and healing and that part. And you do all the notes. So I never even wanted to know or looked at the side effect sheets. I didn't want to know any of it. I was like, I'm going in blind and I will operate with what I wake up with. Right. But oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Because all my appointments have been November, December, which is when cases have spiked. They have locked everything down. So people are like, oh, well, you get to bring someone with you to chemo. No, you don't.
Yeah, no, I don't bring anybody to chemo. And I don't know if you guys have seen my mom. She's so cute. I love her. She comes and she videos, and the chemo nurses let me go downstairs, because typically you can't leave the infusion center. But since I'm one of the younger ones that's there, and I'm usually showing up in sequin heels and I look like I can carry, get myself up and down, I go downstairs and she video records me like I am a zoo animal. Walking up to the window, and then we do a little chemo dance through the window, and then I go back upstairs, and then she shares it with all the people that are praying. But yeah, it's that whole zoo animal vibe.
Yeah, so I had Jeremy at all the appointments in the beginning, December, January, February, March, and he would come with me to chemo, and I got to bring a friend with to chemo, so I got to have my mom, my dad, my oldest son, and then Lauren, and my sister-in-law Hillary. And then I had nobody. So I went from having all these people there to entertain me and to keep me company. And it was seriously a party in there. The nurses were so fun. We would do dance parties.
Yeah. Thank God for amazing nurses at the infusion centers.
Yes.
Especially because you're all by yourself now. Thank God they're amazing.
And Northwestern went into lockdown at about that point. So as I was prepping for my surgery, I wasn't allowed to have him there with any of my surgery prep stuff. And then literally 2 days before my surgery, they opened it up so that I could, visit one visitor or two visitors were allowed. And I could have a visitor from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the surgery ward, but I wasn't allowed to have anybody. So I had to go, he had to drop me off at the door for surgery. And I had to walk myself up there with my stuff and sit there. So yeah, it's been an interesting just process of having to figure out a lot of it on your own, and it's not really that fun. So
that makes us extra fierce warriors.
You're like, oh, you have breast cancer? Yes, but did you do it during a
pandemic?
Story topper.
Because it's always about one-upping, right? Always. Okay, so what has been the hardest part of your journey so far? And this could be maybe a physical thing, or it could be mental, it could be family, it could be whatever you think the world wants to know or needs to know. Becca, you're laughing. I'll go with anybody. Anybody who wants to take the floor. Go for it. Kimber.
For me, the hardest thing was trying to still maintain my mom persona in front of my kids because they were scared. Right now, my oldest is 5, and then I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. But before, I had, an infant and a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my 4-year-old, who's now 5, is extremely smart and empathetic, and he's still, I can tell it's affected him the most. Even now when I have to go have a surgery or go to have any imaging done, he gets really scared that I'm not going to come back. He hates every time I have to stay in the hospital. So that's been really difficult, kind of just talking to him, and he'll ask me questions like, Mommy, why did God make you sick? Why would he do that? And I just answered, I don't know, honey. I don't know all the answers, but I think that I can guess that the reason that this happened was so that I can show you and your sisters how to be strong. Another hard part is just kind of the isolation. And especially during the pandemic, I can't have anybody around me. I'm so paranoid. We've been basically on lockdown since before lockdown. My husband's been working from home since my diagnosis. His company was amazing. They overnighted him everything. He set up an office. People donated PTO to him. I mean, they're just wonderful. But yeah, it's been really difficult kind of just being alone and not being able to have my connection. So I FaceTime my best friend every single day. Even the people at Dunkin' Donuts know my best friend because she's always on my FaceTime. But it is what it is, one foot in front of the other, and just try to explain to my kids that mommy's getting better and that silly medicine that made my hair fall out worked, and I'm just going to keep going.
Yep. I agree with everything that was just said.
Mm-hmm. I'll go. So I think the isolation and the loneliness is just sometimes unbearable. So I'll probably start crying, but Eric every morning wakes me up and says, say the word cry. And if I can say the word cry and not cry, he knows it's a good day. Because the whole empathetic thing, I just say the word and I'll start. But, it's there's a Instagram page that Lisa turned me on to, The Cancer Patient, which is the best thing ever. But there was one that I saw, and it's, you have all these people that are your village and your support system, and they always say, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? But I think, after I beat this, it's one of those, I'm never going to ask that question again. I'm just going to spring into action, because being the person, well, one, we're isolated. So it's kind of hard. People can't come bring me things or hang out with me or visit with me. Because on top of having cancer, I'm a severe asthmatic with aortic valve condition that eventually I'll have to deal with. So it's as far as the COVID high risk box, I check off everything but elderly, which I'm sure if I could find a way to do that somehow, I'd probably just transport. But, it's really isolating. And, people will text you and call you. My old boss is actually my favorite with this. He beat colon cancer. And he'll literally just send me a text message every morning. Just, you don't have to respond. I'm here for you. And then randomly we'll just send things to my house to cheer me up. But the isolation, and then the kids. So my husband and I've worked from home for 7.5 years. So I didn't have to do that pivot. We did lose the nanny, which was a huge wake up, because we have a 13-year-old, 10-year-old, and 5-year-old son here. So the fact that since end of February, we have been in this house, just us, all 5 of us, and going through finding out I had cancer, not being able to really break down. The amount of tears that have been cried in my shower you can't count them, because it's the only place I can go where the kids won't come in. And my middle one, we have him talking to someone weekly, but he struggled the most with just us being locked down for COVID. And then you throw the cancer bit on top of it. And, you know, he'll see all of his friends playing outside, but it's like, we still can't do that. Like, I'm sorry. And just watching your children kind of suffer. And it's weird. You have the teenager who just gets real quiet, doesn't really want to talk about it. So you're trying to the only thing that I've actually read up on cancer is how to cope and deal with your children. So it's like, I'm reading, how do you handle the teenager? And how do you, you know, meet them where they need to be so that you're not messing them up. So some, you know, college girlfriend is dealing with some mess that was created in 2020 by you. You know, and then the 5-year-old just pretty much oblivious. So I kind of like that because he doesn't treat mom like he has cancer. You know, I don't have cancer to him. It's just, oh, you lost your hair, but you still look kind of cool, like whatever. So it's just, that's my guilt, I think, that I'm carrying, is I just don't want to mess them up, you know. And how do you do that? Because this pandemic is, you know, it's one of those things everyone's complaining, oh, my life is so hard. And I will meet you with that. And I understand that your life is difficult and that your children are suffering, but it's like, my children are also suffering with their mom fighting cancer. So on top of the pandemic, and it's like, what are the long-term effects of that, you know, as far as their psyche? I'm hoping that they're positive things, like that they're empathetic and that they're compassionate and that they're going to be the most amazing husbands down the road because of that. But you don't know, they could be a mess and whatever.
Regardless. But yeah, that's something that, you know, the four of us have talked about is, I'm just going to put this out there, and please, I hope nobody takes offense to this. But it's been hard for the four of us to see people. This is hard for me to say. See people maybe complain about things that to us seem like, oh, like, I think maybe sometimes we look at it and we're like, wow, if that's it, like, you're kind of lucky. But we also have talked about that those are those people's truths, right? And like having people complain to us and seeing people complain also makes us feel not so fragile, I think. You know, instead of everybody always being like happy-go-lucky around us, like it's okay to complain to us too. But it's like this catch-22 of, oh, all right, well, you want to hear about my day? Right? But it's everybody's perception is their reality, and you know, that hopefully that what we're going through is not something that they ever have to know. But I also know that there's people that are going through way worse than what I'm going through.
Right.
So
right.
The other way to look at it too is that I'm still here. You know, like things are looking up. My kids, I think, are somewhat okay. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, Jill, what about you?
For sure the isolation. So we started lockdown the day that we brought my youngest daughter home from the hospital was pretty much when the world shut down. So when everyone's like, oh my God, this has been going on for 11 months. I'm like, actually, I have a time clock upstairs. Her name's Mallory. And it's been 9.5 months since March 17th is pretty much when the world shut down. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. So my husband was working from home for like a week before that. His office shut down. I'm a teacher, so I was on maternity leave. So I didn't have the disaster that was remote learning in the spring. I kind of kept up with a little bit of it, and people were like, this is not good. And I'd be like, oh, why is that happening that way? But we started off a little different in the fall, and, you know, teaching from home and teaching to a computer screen is not any teacher's dream. It's kind of actually really depressing as a teacher when you're like, please turn your camera on. I tell my students that my theme song is Show Yourself, and I do sing Frozen 2 to them all the time to be like, turn on your cameras, please let me see your face. My district for a few weeks actually went back and had kids in the building. That was a huge struggle for me. Right as the kids came back into the building was right as I was diagnosed. And the very first doctor that I went to was like, do not leave your house. This is very dangerous. You cannot get COVID. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I was going to work and had students in my classroom who couldn't or wouldn't wear masks the right way. I had coworkers who were walking around with no masks on in classroom, like, and I mean, it's everyone's reality is their own reality, and everyone makes that choice for themselves. But that was a struggle for me, being back at work, just around all those people, being like, oh God, like it was like everyone get away from me. So the isolation was difficult, and going to doctor's offices alone was difficult. And now I'll be teaching, and I'll still be teaching from home. Well, kids are coming back into the classroom, but thankfully there's a second teacher that I teach with that will be in the classroom with kids, and I'll just be keeping it real from my mission control at my house where I can stay teaching and stay safe, because no immune system on chemo. So that makes it, I mean, like, I feel like the pandemic has made cancer scarier than it needed to be, just because everyone's like, no, 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 you have no immune system. So that's definitely been maybe the biggest struggle, the isolation. My kids are like, Mallory's 9 months old and Gwen is 2.5. So they're pretty much oblivious to everything. So trying to just keep it normal is a little tough, but maybe a little bit easier because they're completely unaware of anything that's going on. So maybe that'll be a blessing later that they just won't even remember this time in their life. A big struggle was actually telling my mom. So my mom is a 2-time breast cancer survivor. So calling her, being like, hey, like, guess what? That was hard because I watched her go through it when I was 11, 12. And then again when I was 27, 28, something like that. So it was one of those things where, you know, she, like, I hated breaking her heart. Yeah. Because I knew how, like, upset she was because she's dealt with it. That I knew, like, she knew what I was in for. But at the same time, I'm like, but mom, you're fine. So, like, if anything is there, like, you're what, 27 years out from your first diagnosis, like, and you're still here, you're fine. So, like, I will be fine. But yeah, that was probably the biggest and hardest thing.
Yeah, I know. And I think, like, I feel like my mom struggles with that too. And she, it was hard to tell her. And it's also, I think, really hard for her to watch me go through this stuff and not be able to fix it, because moms always want to fix everything. So yeah. So my hardest part, I think, in the beginning of it was like the pandemic. So it's like the cancer. Okay, I kind of like accepted the fact that I had cancer and I was going to be dealing with it. And then I added this pandemic, and I remember very vividly crying to Jeremy multiple times and being like, okay, so is literally somebody out to kill me because I just got diagnosed with cancer. Now there's this pandemic. Like, I don't know how I'm going to survive this. Like, I literally multiple times thought that I was going to be dying from some way or another. And that was terrifying to me. I mean, like, I got to the point that I was trying to figure out if I should be leaving my kids videos of, like, so they can, like, watch a video to remember me. And, you know, and it was one of those catch-22s. I remember talking to him and, like, do you want to know when you're going to die, or do you want to be caught off guard? Like, and here I have, you know, so I remember being really just, it was like depressive. Like, I was 100% in a depressive state. And then add to that, so I'm a mom of 5. I'm a business owner. I'm supposed to be a motivational business owner to women that are in our community. And I have this instructor team that I'm supposed to be strong for, and I'm supposed to be the leader. And that was the last thing in the world I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to just throw in the towel so many times, but I also knew that so many people were dependent on what we were doing. And I knew that we were being impactful with what we were doing. And so, but to be a business owner in Illinois during a pandemic, a fitness business owner, no less, like one that they have somehow determined that that's like the most unsafe thing to be right now, even though it's so much research that says it's not, but whatever. Cancer, whatever, all the things, right? Like, it's just like this big snowball of 2020, I'm done with you. And now, right now, I'm 100%, and nurse Julie, my friend Julie will tell you that I'm 100% a hypochondriac. And I literally think every little thing with me is something wrong, which is unfortunate because the things that I have called her about truly are something wrong. So like it's only feeding my hypochondriacness. Like the other day I was like, so Julie, I kind of can't breathe when I talk. Like I have to take a deep breath. And she's like, well, why don't you come in and we'll just do a chest x-ray and I'll come, we'll do a quick blood work on you. I'm like, okay, I'm sure I'm fine, but like, maybe I should just get it checked out. And she's like, okay, this is like after the oophorectomy. So I go in and get my chest scan, and she comes and puts a little pulse ox thing on. And like, I haven't worked out in a while, but I'm still a fairly healthy person. And my resting heart rate was 120, which I don't know if you know this, but that's not a good resting heart rate. And she's like, so something's wrong. So we're going to need you to go to the ER to get some more scans done. So I went to the ER and I had pulmonary emboli, like not just pulmonary embolism, but like 2 of them. So then like that fed into it. So I had this now stay in the hospital. And then I think it's just frustrating to not be able to do what I used to do. My hands don't work. Rebecca talked about that a little, like, and she texted me today. She's like, I dropped
5 eggs.
Yeah. So I drop things all the time. It's a big joke in my house. Like I can't, my hands don't do what they used to do. And it's really frustrating for me. And I like little fine motor things. My fingers just don't work. Christmas was torturous. Putting all the toys together, doing all the batteries, doing all the little, because toys can't just be in a box now. They have to be like, oh my gosh, like, so yeah, everything is just frustrating. And then I just am tired all the time. I'm just tired. And so I used to be really kind of high energy and go, go, go. And I can't anymore. And I find myself on the couch more often than I want to be. And I can't play with my kids like I used to. And I can't do a squat. Like I can't do a squat. And so it's just those little day-to-day things. Like there's some days I literally can't get out of bed. So I have to do this weird little like Shamu whale thing where I kind of like roll to the side and then like flip my feet onto the ground and then like push myself like slowly up so that I'm somewhat upright. And there's moments I think like it's actually easier to walk around with a cane than it is to walk around how I walk around. And I asked Jeremy, I'm like, so are you gonna love me when in like 2 years when I'm permanently like walking around with a walker or a cane? And he's like, only till the kids are 18. I'm like, oh, thanks, babe. So we have a really dark sense of humor.